In this tutorial, I'll show you how to create a stylized TV opening inspired by The Walking Dead using BCC effects in Premiere Pro. Hi, here I am in Premiere Pro, and this is my finished timeline. You can see here a opening inspired by The Walking Dead. Very color corrected, very grungy, and very stylized. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to create all this pretty much from scratch using a lot of the new filters in BCC 9. Alright, so let's get started. So here's a blank timeline. Here are the images I started from. You can see how they look without the color correction here. Very different. Let's start with the parking lot and turn it into a desolate wasteland. Alright, first of all, this image is way too big, so I'm going to right click and scale to frame size. Then I'm going to create a simple pan and zoom using Premiere's motion controls. If I zoom out, I get better control over the borders. So we don't want to do a lot of motion here, just a little bit. About over 4 seconds is good. So maybe just pan it down and then zoom out just a tiny bit, holding control as I slide to get finer control there. Okay, that works quite well. Now let's apply some filters to this. So what I'm going to do first is color correct the whole image, and I'm going to do that using the new BCC 2-strip color filter, which is in the film style category, and it's designed to give you the look of old Hollywood, or like Technicolor type color. So I could just go through the presets here one by one, or I could take advantage of the new effects browser, which lets me see all the presets at once on my source footage. So here I can just choose the one that I like the best, which is actually the first one, and hit apply. So here it is, and I scrub, see it looks pretty good there. I do want to take down the saturation to about 120, and the brightness I'll just reset back to 100, and there we go. That's the look I want. So it's kind of bleak, it's kind of dry and arid, but you know, also kind of warm. So a little compromise there. Next, I'm going to add a vignette, another new BCC 9 filter in the film style category. And like the name implies, this gives a nice vignette around your footage. You can adjust the radius and softness of the shadow there. And you can also add a blur. So if I go color and blur, and I decrease the blur offset, you can sort of see what I mean there. See how it blurs in towards the center of the image? A very cool effect. Sort of replicates an out-of-focus lens. And what I'm going to do next is just turn down the smoothness on the vignette. And that's pretty much all I had to do there. One new touch I might add to it, I might push the vignette a little bit off-center just to make it a little more interesting looking. There we go. There's the first part of the effect right there. Next, I'm going to do something different. I'm going to bring in a black video, which, you know, has nothing on it, and I'm going to use BCC pan and zoom to create the pan and zoom motion on my image. So there's a couple reasons you might want to do this. First of all, it will link to an external file, so here's the one I want, which means you can easily swap it out for another one should you have to use the same animation over and over again. Alright, so this is the default animation, just kind of a standard zoom in there. Another advantage to pan and zoom is that it doesn't use keyframes. So it just sort of uses this setup A, setup B approach. So if you turn on the preview mode, set it to mix, and you scrub here, you can see how that works. You have this rectangular border, which shows you what the camera will be doing throughout the motion. And here's a little preview screen up there. So like before, I can actually just change the position of these things. I just have to change my preview target to setup A, and then I can just move this around and zoom in a bit. Could even rotate it if I wanted. The BCC 9 version of pan and zoom has 3D rotations available to you, which is a topic for another tutorial. So we'll start it up here, go to setup B, zoom it out. And this one I want to be more of just like a straight pan across, not so much of the zooming in this one. Another nice thing about the BCC pan and zoom is this animation mode. So you have the option to do exponential, which is kind of like an ease animation. See the curve of the animation there? Or you can just do like a nice simple straight motion, which I'm going to do. Turn off the hold in, hold out, and also turn off the ease in, ease out to get a nice linear motion. So let's turn off the preview curve, and now if I scrub, it's just a straightforward pan and zoom. Okay, good. Next we're going to apply those filters again. So we're pretty much recreating our previous two steps. I'm going to start with 2-strip color. Going to use that same first preset. Again, turn the saturation and brightness down. Put that back up to 125. And the vignette we're going to apply later. Next we're going to apply BCC Grunge. It's one of my favorite new filters in BCC 9. And that's going to let me really dirty up the lens, make it look all gritty and cool. Alright, so this is the default in Grunge. It's actually an image that you can use as a texture map or background layer or whatever. And I'm going to through the texture gallery here until I find one that I think looks like dirt on the lens. And that would be the cardboard one here. So it looks cool. I'm going to go into transformations, zoom out a bit. There we go. Next I'm going to go into the apply mode and change the apply mode to screen. That way it will composite on top of the background. See how it doesn't move with the pan and zoom, sort of gives the impression that this is on the lens. Next we're going to add a shake to the texture. Increase the position XY to 200. And if I don't change anything else, that'll be a very, very shaky texture. So we're going to turn the speed down to like 2 and the random amount to 0. This will just ensure that it's constantly moving, but very subtly. Okay, good. Next, let's add some orbs. So this will add more dirt to the lens again. I'm going to use the shake that I just added so they stay together like so. So I'm going to turn down the number of orbs, so the count, take that down to 5. I'm going to increase the scale to 5 so it's easy to remember. The depth blur, I'm going to increase that to about 50. And the intensity, let's increase that to about 18. And the intensity random to 100. So just a little bit of a big splotch here, but it works well. Alright, next we're going to add dust, and this is my favorite element to add. You can see it very faintly there. Hopefully on your compressed video you can still see it. And just a few things to change in dust. The count we're going to take down to 100, but then we're going to increase the density to 20, and that's pretty much all we need to do with the dust. You could increase the scale to maybe make it more visible if you can't see it too well, but 100 works well for this shot. Just kind of going through, you can see everything moving together and it looks cool. One thing I can do now is go into transformations and turn down the opacity of the texture. I left it on full so you could see it clearly, but for the effect we want to bring it down to maybe 40. It really sort of changes the overall look, doesn't it? I'll put it back up to 50 just so you can see it even better, but in general, the more subtle the better with this. Okay, so now we really got it looking organic. Now we can apply the vignette again. It's going to be just like last time. So color and blur, take the blur offset to -25. Maybe change the color this time around, something lighter, light brown. Yeah, looks good. And the softness again, we'll take it down to maybe just 10. This time I will leave the vignette dead center because it works well on this shot. Okay, so we have a lot going on in this clip. There's a couple more things to add to the whole timeline. The first is the title on top of the bridge. So if I just bring it on here and scrub through it, you can see it's chugging along a little bit. So I'm going to set up my title animation over here just because it scrubs so much faster. So I'll push this down for now. What I want to do is put a little bit of a pan motion on the title. Just animate the position there. Have it go to the right, maybe 100 pixels or so. It's good. Then I'm actually just going to trim it. And now I'm going to add another new BCC filter, actually a BCC transition, BCC Blob Swipe, which is in the transitions category. So just put it on there, and the default setting gives you that, true to form blob wipe look. I'm going to increase the softness to 30, decrease the scale to about 70, and increase the turbulence to about 8. You can tell I've memorized these values. And that gives me a nice smoky transition, kind of like they use on the titles in the opening of Walking Dead. Okay, so I'm going to apply it again at the end. If you don't want to go through the hassle of setting all those parameters, you can just save a preset. So I'm going to call this dead. And then go over here, select the new transition, and just load that preset. Easy as pie. I don't think anyone has said that in a long time, but I just did, so deal with that. Okay, so now we have our title on top of the bridge. We know the motion is correct because we were able to scrub it faster earlier. And now let's add a transition between these two clips. Another new BCC 9 transition, Flutter cut. This sort of gives like a rapid intercutting look. Gonna zoom in a bit. Take down the duration to about half a second. Come here, and my outgoing clip, I want to start with longer frame holds. So hold for 5 frames on the outgoing, but then have it go down to 1 frame. And if I, hide a few of these filters, I can get a nice quick preview of how that'll look just by scrubbing. And that's the look I want. It might look like a glitch, but that's sort of the point. So don't worry about your video failing you there. That is the intended result. And one more thing to do to this segment, I'm going to use an adjustment layer and apply a glow to this whole piece. And I'm going to add the BCC Fast Film Glow, also in film style. It's another new filter in BCC 9. So it's a great, quick and easy glow effect. If I enable the track, we can see it. So I'm going to turn up the threshold so it doesn't blow out everything quite so much. So threshold to 50, and maybe the glow intensity down to 40. There we go. That's looking really nice. And that'll help blend the title with your background as well. Okay, the last piece of this whole project is the name of the show itself, or in my case, the parody name, The Ambling Corpses. I figured if I called it that, then I'm safe from copyright laws. I don't know if that's true, but it's what I did. So let's keep going. We're going to stylize the text using Grunge again. Now you see why it's in the stylized group. And Grunge on a title is really a fun thing to play with. Again, I'm going to go through these textures till I find the one that I think looks like the show's texture. I believe the best one for that is Cardboard Pack 10. Going to do some color changes here. Turn down the saturation, change the tint color to something a little bit pale yellow, increase the brightness, contrast. Next, let's go into transforms. Let's scale down texture again. Maybe even bring down the opacity a bit. And now we're going to use the displacement map, and this really adds a lot to your title. It is a displacement map filter, so it displaces your image or title based on the texture that you are using. Very cool effect. Next, I'm going to add an erosion, which will make your text disappear based on the luminance or any other channel in your texture. So these two, the erosion and the displacement, are really good for sort of animating transitions on your text, which is what I'm going to do in just a second. First, I want to make sure the text has some motion on it. So we're going to start it here. Just do a quick and easy pan, not too much. That works well. Now we're going to trim it up so we have motion the entire time. push it up. And now I'm going to animate those displacement and erosion effects like I was talking about. So we'll start here, put a keyframe there, and increase the amount to 100. So that makes sure the text goes completely away. It's a really cool little transition. So that might be good enough, but I want to also animate the displacement. So we're moving left to right, so let's animate the amount X. And maybe up to like 50 or 60. So you can really smear it out beyond recognition. Great! The last thing, the very last thing I'm going to do is just use Grunge to add a little bit of a background to this title. So here I'm finally going to use Grunge as just kind of a background generator. You can see all the different uses you can get from this filter. It's a lot of fun, there's a lot to it. Anyway, finding another cardboard preset should work good. Gonna go back into color, turn the saturation all the way down, and the brightness down a lot too. Just enough so it's visible there. And maybe even add a little bit of a blur to the effect. Just turn on the blur in Grunge, and just the right amount right there. Okay, there you go. So hopefully you stuck with me the whole time. I know it was a longish tutorial, but I think it's worth it. So for more tutorials and to download a free trial version of our software, check out our website at borisfx.com.